In 2017, the Dominican Republic's paradise turned to tragedy with the disappearance of 16-year-old Emily Peguero. Bright, kind, and full of dreams, Emily's life was cut short under horrifying circumstances, caught between a teenage pregnancy and the ruthless ambition of her wealthy neighbors. What began as a private family crisis became a national scandal, exposing corruption, power, and the brutal reality of violence against women. Support the channel by liking the video, sharing your thoughts in the comments, and subscribing for more stories. It truly helps. Thank you. Let's dive into today's case. Emmy Deland Peguero, known to everyone simply as Emily, was born on July 12, 2001, in Cenoví, a small town located roughly an hour from Santo Domingo, the Dominican Republic's capital. Emily was the youngest child of Adalgisa and Jado, and despite growing older, her brothers and sisters never stopped treating her as the family's baby, constantly watching over her and trying to shield her from life's harsh realities. Bright, affectionate, and always smiling, Emily was known for her cheerful personality and distinctive dimples. She carried a dream that went far beyond her years. She wanted to become a lawyer. More than anything, she hoped to one day help people who couldn't afford costly legal representation, determined to stand up for those who had no one else to fight for them. Growing up in a financially struggling household, Emily understood hardship firsthand. That upbringing shaped her plans for the future. She dreamed of offering her legal services for free one day, determined to help those who had no money and no voice. Kind-hearted by nature, she was always looking for ways to make a positive difference, no matter how small. The Peguero family lived in a modest, cozy home, a small structure with shuttered windows, a flat roof, and a weather-worn butterfly painted across the front wall, its colors faded by years of sun. To keep the family afloat, her parents worked multiple low-paying jobs, doing whatever they could to make ends meet. Life offered few comforts, but Emily never lacked the essentials. Poverty never dampened her spirit. She did well in school, made friends easily, and treasured time spent with her family. Emily loved putting on stage makeup, slipping into costumes, and performing little shows for those she loved most. In those moments, watching their youngest daughter dance, laugh, and shine, the stress of unpaid bills and financial strain seemed to disappear. Despite every challenge, the Peguero household was filled with warmth. Emily's parents poured their energy into giving their children affection, care, and attention, and in that, they succeeded completely. When Emily was 15 years old, she began a relationship with a boy named Marlon Martinez, who was 18 at the time. Although his family lived directly across the street from hers, the two came from vastly different backgrounds. They had known each other since they were children, and what eventually became a romantic relationship had first grown out of a gentle, familiar friendship. Marlon had been born in the United States, but when he was around 8 or 9 years old, his family moved back to the Dominican Republic. They settled into a large, well-kept home with a spacious front yard, standing in stark contrast to the modest house where Emily lived just across the road. The difference in their financial situations was impossible to ignore. Marlon's mother and stepfather were financially comfortable and made sure their son attended an elite school outside their town. His mother, in particular, was a powerful and recognizable figure. She was active in politics and had once served as the province's mayor. At the time of Emily and Marlon's relationship, she held a government position overseeing the issuance of passports and visas and played a role in numerous political campaigns. Through her work, she had built an extensive network of influential connections, giving her considerable sway within Dominican society. Marlon's mother held enormous influence within the community. Whispers circulated for years that she had helped people secure visas through illegal means, creating a long list of individuals who owed her favors. Despite the rumors, she was never investigated or punished. There always seemed to be someone powerful shielding her from consequences. In truth, she was not a pleasant woman. Emily's father knew this well. He had once worked as a private security guard for her and had personally witnessed her volatile temper and aggressive behavior. She appeared to believe that wealth and authority gave her permission to treat others however she liked. In her own mind, she stood far above everyone else, convinced she was untouchable and could act without restraint. Because of her cruel reputation, many locals quietly refer to her as the devil, though no one dared say it openly. Consumed by political ambitions and career advancement, she rarely had time for family life. With 3 sons to raise, including Marlon, she often relied on outside help rather than hiring a professional nanny, delegating childcare responsibilities whenever it suited her. To avoid hiring a full-time caregiver, she struck an arrangement with her neighbor, Emily's mother, Adele Giza, paying her to watch the boys while she attended to her work and political obligations. Marlon would drop his brothers off and then leave for the day, trusting that they were in good hands. Through these daily visits, the children from both households quickly formed close bonds, spending hours playing together. On occasion, the Martinez boys even stayed overnight, a sign of how much trust Marlon's mother placed in Emily's family. Despite the stark difference in social status, the two families became closely connected. Because Marlon and his brothers were so often at the Pagaro home, the children grew up treating one another like relatives rather than neighbors. Their early years were filled with shared games and laughter, though as they got older, their paths crossed less and less, reduced to brief greetings and familiar faces seen in passing. Everything shifted when Emily turned 15 and Marlon was already 18. They began talking again, spending time together as friends at first. Before long, that renewed connection turned romantic, and the two officially became a couple. The relationship raised eyebrows throughout the community, not only because of the age gap, but also because Dominican law sets the age of consent at 18, meaning Emily was still legally a minor. Emily's family was strongly opposed to the relationship, and their concern had little to do with Marlon himself. The real issue was his mother. Not long before, the woman had been involved in yet another heated argument with a neighbor over something trivial, further damaging her already poor reputation on the street. Many residents openly dislike her, viewing her as arrogant and confrontational. Marlon, however, was nothing like her. He was generally seen as an ordinary, friendly young man, and in many ways, Emily's mother, Adele Giza, had played a role in raising him during his childhood. Emily's father chose not to intervene directly. He was well aware of how Marlon's mother looked down on people with less money and power, and although he disapproved of the relationship, he didn't try to forbid it. He didn't want to risk alienating his daughter, who was clearly deeply in love. Still, the volatile nature of their neighbor left him uneasy. By 2017, Emily was approaching her 16th birthday, and her relationship with Marlon continued without obvious problems, until spring brought an unexpected and life-altering development. Emily began feeling unwell, though she couldn't immediately explain why. Marlon, being older, quickly suspected the cause. After medical tests confirmed it, the reality set in: Emily was pregnant. The news stunned them both, but there was no question about what would happen next. In the Dominican Republic, abortion is illegal under all circumstances. Emily understood that she would have no legal option but to carry the pregnancy to term. In this deeply Catholic country, abortion had been classified as a criminal act in 2012, with prison sentences imposed not only on those seeking the procedure, but also on anyone who assisted, including doctors, friends, and even family members. Emily was still just a child herself, and the reality of becoming a mother terrified her. She worried constantly about how she could possibly provide for a baby when she had so little of her own. Marlon tried to calm her fears, assuring her that everything would somehow work out. Even so, Emily was paralyzed by the thought of telling her parents. She had no idea how they would react, but she also knew she couldn't hide the truth forever. Summoning what courage she could, Emily first confided in her sister and then in her mother, revealing that she was pregnant. Her father, Genaro, remained unaware for months. It wasn't until 5 months later, during a break from work, that he came home for lunch. As soon as he stepped into the kitchen, He noticed the strained expression on his wife's face and sensed that something was terribly wrong. When he asked what was happening, Adele Giza dropped the devastating news. Their youngest daughter was already 5 months pregnant. Genaro was overwhelmed. He grabbed his head in disbelief, asking how it was possible that a child was now about to have a child of her own. The shock left him unable to steady himself for nearly half an hour. Eventually, he managed to collect his thoughts and said he would speak with the young couple, but he needed time to process what he had just learned. Tragically, Genaro discovered his daughter's pregnancy only 9 days before Emily vanished. There was no chance for a calm, meaningful conversation between father and daughter. No time for understanding, guidance, or reassurance. Roughly a week later, Marlon's stepfather, Roberto, reached out to Genaro and suggested they sit down together to talk seriously about the baby's future. Genaro agreed, and the 3 men, Genaro, Roberto, and Marlon, met for an honest discussion. During the conversation, Marlon assured Emily's father that he intended to take full responsibility for the child and remain by Emily's side. Roberto echoed those promises, stating he would do everything he could to support his stepson and help the young family. The discussion eased some of Genaro's fears, but it did not erase them. He still struggled with the reality that his youngest daughter, whom he saw as a child herself, was about to become a mother. Genaro laid out clear conditions. Emily would continue living at home, along with the baby, since she was still underage. Both families would share responsibility for caring for the newborn. In his eyes, Emily belonged under her parents' roof at least until she turned 18, pregnancy or not. He loved his daughter deeply and was determined to support her no matter what. Marlon agreed to these terms, and Roberto backed him completely. There was, however, one person who was deeply displeased by the situation: Marlon's mother. She was furious about the pregnancy and saw it as a disastrous mistake. In her view, her son's future, especially his college education, was now at risk, derailed by responsibilities he never should have taken on. More than that, she worried obsessively about her family's public image. She didn't want whispers spreading that the Martinez family had become tied to a poor household. While she had reluctantly tolerated her son dating Emily, the idea of a child binding them together was something she simply could not accept. On the morning of August 23, 2017, 16-year-old Emily woke up early and got herself ready to go out. When her mother asked where she was headed, Emily explained that Marlon was taking her to a doctor's appointment to pick up some test results. She reassured her mother that she wouldn't be gone long and promised to be back within the hour. Adele Giza walked her daughter to the door and watched as Emily climbed into Marlon's car before they drove off together. Adele then returned to her routine, making breakfast, cleaning the house, and eventually starting lunch. It was only later that a troubling thought struck her. Emily still hadn't come home. That alone felt wrong. Emily was always considerate and responsible. If she was delayed, she would call or send a message to explain why and say when she'd return. This time, there was nothing. Hours passed with no word, and Adele's unease steadily grew. At around 10:30 a.m., Emily's sister received a message. The text claimed that Marlon had dropped Emily off at a gas station because she had decided to meet her uncle. Instead of easing the family's fears, the message raised even more questions. Emily almost never sent text messages. She preferred voice notes. And which uncle was she supposedly meeting? She hadn't mentioned any such plan before leaving the house. Something about the message felt wrong, and the family's concern deepened. Thirdly, the tone of the message didn't sound like Emily at all. Everything about it felt off, strange, and unsettling. Concerned, Adele Giza sent her eldest daughter across the street to the Martinez house to find out exactly where Emily had gone. Marlon answered the door and tried to explain. According to him, that morning, while they were on their way to the clinic, Emily realized she had mixed up the dates. The test results wouldn't be ready until Friday. Supposedly, instead of returning home, the pregnant girl asked to be dropped off at a gas station because she had arranged to meet her uncle. Marlon claimed he agreed, gave her some money just in case, and watched as she got into a car he assumed belonged to her uncle. At least, that's what he said, and it was the last time he saw her. Worried and confused, Adele and her older daughter went to the gas station to ask employees if they had seen Emily or her supposed ride. They even requested to review the surveillance footage. What they discovered was chilling. Neither Emily nor Marlon had been at the gas station that morning. It became clear that Marlon either had confused the location entirely or was, for some reason, not telling the truth. Marlon continued to insist that he had left Emily at the gas station, even as the girl ignored all calls and messages. Alarmed, Adele Giza acted without hesitation. She immediately contacted the police to report her underage, pregnant daughter as missing. Alongside her other children, she began distributing flyers with Emily's photo, desperate to bring her home as quickly as possible and unwilling to waste a single moment. At first, the family didn't suspect that a stranger had kidnapped Emily or that she had simply run into trouble on her own. Everyone felt certain that Marlon was somehow involved, but their suspicion didn't fall directly on the young man. Rather, it was aimed at his mother. Adele openly told reporters that she believed the Martinez family knew exactly where Emily was but refused to disclose it. The concern stemmed from a disturbing discovery. Genaro, Emily's father, had come across a message on his daughter's phone in which Marlon appeared to be pressuring his girlfriend to terminate the pregnancy. Marlon's mother, a woman who considered herself an important figure in the community, apparently felt that a child conceived out of wedlock was unacceptable. Emily's parents became convinced that Marlon, and by extension his family, might be trying to eliminate what they viewed as an inconvenient pregnancy. These messages only heightened their fear and sense of urgency. On August 19, 2017, just 4 days before Emily's sudden disappearance, the messages on her phone revealed a chilling exchange. Marlon had allegedly suggested that Emily terminate the pregnancy at home, promising that he would ensure everything would go smoothly. At first, Emily had refused outright, standing firm against the idea. But after repeated pressure and manipulations, she eventually said she would trust the adult woman who was supposedly experienced in such matters. When Genaro discovered these messages, his suspicions about the Martinez family grew even stronger. The situation became even more alarming when, immediately after Emily was officially reported missing, Marlon's mother rushed to hire a lawyer. To many, this move seemed highly suspicious. If she truly had nothing to do with her disappearance, why would she seek legal counsel so quickly? As the hours passed and a full day went by with no sign of Emily, rumors began to spread throughout the town. Fear and suspicion no longer rested solely with Emily's family. Neighbors and other locals also began pointing fingers at the Martinez family. Genaro, the family patriarch, was consumed by worry. He could not fathom where his daughter might have been or how she had spent that fateful August night. Was she safe, or was she in pain somewhere? Alone, the weight of despair often brought him to tears, though in public he maintained a composed exterior. He understood that if anyone close to him saw him break down, their hope for a positive outcome would vanish along with his own. Once news of Emily's disappearance and the suspected involvement of her boyfriend's family spread through the community, Marlon and his mother decided to hold a press conference to deny the rumors and assert their innocence. Using her extensive connections, Marlon's mother invited multiple reporters, hoping to quickly quell the growing speculation surrounding the Martinez family. The press conference was held in the Martinez living room. Marlon's mother and Marlon appeared in casual clothes, a simple t-shirt, and throughout the interview, he kept his gaze downward, visibly nervous. His hands trembled slightly, betraying his anxiety. Marlon's mother, on the other hand, was impeccably dressed in a formal suit, her hair styled neatly, and she exuded confidence. As a former mayor, she took the lead during the conversation, effortlessly guiding the discussion and answering questions with practiced poise. The first questions, however, were directed at Marlon. He repeated the familiar story, how they had been driving to the clinic, how Emily realized she had confused the dates, and how he supposedly dropped her off at a gas station. After recounting the events, Marlon finally lifted his eyes to the camera and spoke directly to his missing girlfriend. He acknowledged that, like most couples, They had faced difficulties, but insisted that their families had come to accept the unexpected pregnancy and were looking forward to the baby's arrival. Then, struggling to keep his composure and holding back tears, he turned his gaze fully to the camera and addressed Emily Peguero wherever she might be, saying simply that he was waiting for her, with open arms. After Marlon finished speaking, his mother took the floor. She firmly insisted that every rumor circulating about their family was completely false, stressing that the Martinezes had nothing to do with Emily's disappearance. She claimed that morning, Marlon had actually been taking Emily's grandmother to the consulate to handle some paperwork, using this story as an alibi to highlight how close they were to the Peguero family. Throughout the interview, she repeatedly emphasized the bond they shared with Emily, portraying the missing girl as already a cherished part of their family, carrying her grandson in her womb. She insisted that they were just as worried about her as Emily's own relatives were. Then, turning her gaze to the camera, she addressed Emily directly, pleading with her to reveal where she was and spare them the agony of uncertainty. Her voice cracked at times, and it was clear she was barely holding back tears. Finally, she invited anyone with questions to come forward, promising that both she and her son would answer openly. "We have nothing to hide," she declared, presenting themselves as transparent and innocent in the face of growing suspicion. The press conference organized by Marlon's mother backfired, creating more confusion than clarity. Many people were puzzled as to why Emily Peguero's family hadn't been invited to speak alongside them, seeing the event as self-serving rather than sincere. Actions, after all, speak louder than words, and most residents of Centerville were left convinced that the Martinezes were merely trying to protect their own reputation. The old saying, "There's no smoke without fire," fueled these suspicions, and the community began to assume that if rumors linked the family to Emily's disappearance, there must be some truth to them. Even small details at the conference raised eyebrows. Both Marlon and his mother referred to Emily in the past tense, which many interpreted as a sign that they already knew what had happened to her. The public imagined a scenario all too familiar: a wealthy, influential family taking drastic measures to erase a young, poor girl in order to save face. Rather than quelling doubts, the press conference only poured fuel on the fire. Amid mounting suspicion, Marlon himself made the difficult decision to go to the Peguero household. Seeing the worried faces of his neighbors and understanding the growing pressure, he chose to turn himself into the authorities, knowing full well he would likely be arrested and interrogated. On August 26, 2017, Marlon was taken into custody as the primary suspect and sent to a detention center. Yet despite his arrest, the most urgent question remained unanswered. Where was Emily Peguero, and was she still alive? Detectives threw every available resource into finding Emily, and 5 days after her disappearance, the investigation finally produced a critical lead. On Monday, August 28th, police managed to trace the geolocation of Emily's phone. Its last signal came from an apartment in the upscale San Francisco de Macorís district, the building where Marlon Martinez, Marlon's mother, lived. While the children officially lived with their stepfather, Roberto, in Centerville, their mother frequently stayed at this apartment during business trips. When authorities searched the residence, they discovered alarming evidence: blood spatters on the mattress and several towels soaked in blood. All of these items were immediately sent to a forensic laboratory for testing. Meanwhile, investigators continued questioning potential witnesses. 2 days later, the apartment building's security guard came forward with shocking information. According to him, on the morning of August 23rd, the day Emily vanished, he had seen, on surveillance footage, Marlon carrying a large bag out of the building and loading it into his car. The guard, unsure what else to do, contacted Marlon's mother. When Marlon came downstairs to view the recordings himself, his mother's reaction was telling. She became visibly agitated, clutched her head, and began screaming. After a short while, the video feed inexplicably disappeared. The security guard didn't know what had happened to the footage, but suspected that the Martinez family might have removed it. Public outrage continued to mount, with much of the anger aimed squarely at Marlon's mother. Many in the community believed she was the mastermind behind Emily's disappearance, convinced that she was using her wealth and influence to shield her son from consequences. Those who knew Marlon well suspected that his mother was covering for him, manipulating the situation to protect her family's reputation. On the same day the security guard reported the missing surveillance footage to the police, Marlon Martinez showed up at the station and voluntarily turned herself in. Her lawyer maintained that she was only cooperating with the investigation, but public opinion told a different story. Most people believed she anticipated her imminent arrest. When a reporter asked if she had played a role in Emily Peguero's disappearance, she replied that she was simply protecting her son, as any mother would. Her words struck many as chilling. The mother of a powerful family, it seemed, had put her son's interests above the life of another family's daughter. Worse still, a girl carrying her grandchild. Slowly, the pieces of the puzzle were beginning to fall into place. August 30th, 2017, proved to be one of the tensest days for investigators. First, they received the tip about the incriminating footage from the building's security guard. Then, Marlon's mother turned herself in. And later that same day, her son, Marlon, confessed to the police, finally revealing the horrifying truth. The Peguero family's worst fears were finally confirmed. Marlon admitted to investigators that Emily was dead and revealed that he had left her body at a local dump. The confession sent shockwaves through not only Emily's family, but the entire community. For days, people had clung to the hope that the young, pregnant girl might still be alive, but that hope was now shattered. Police officers, accompanied by Marlon, rushed to the local dump to recover the body. As soon as their patrol car arrived, it was immediately surrounded by an angry crowd. Townspeople wanted to confront Marlon face-to-face, shouting their outrage. Officers were forced to fire warning shots to disperse the mob. For safety reasons, Marlon was not allowed out of the car, while authorities spent more than 8 grueling hours searching through piles of trash and debris. But initially, they found nothing. The following morning, residents of Senevi expressed their frustration in dramatic fashion, blocking key roads at 9 a.m. and demanding that Marlon finally reveal the location of Emily's body. They burned tires, hurled stones, and threatened the Martinez family home. Police had to intervene to restore order. Finally, the prayers of Emily's parents and concerned townspeople were answered. Later that day, a body was discovered in Espaillat province, about an hour's drive from Senevi, bringing the tragic search to a devastating conclusion. A flood of messages poured into Emily's older brother's phone, all reporting the same chilling news. The body of an unidentified girl had been found in a neighboring province. The Peguero family, along with police and other relatives, rushed to the scene, desperate to learn the truth about Emily's fate. They arrived after sunset, with only police lights and flashlights cutting through the darkness. A tense crowd had gathered along the roadside. In the center lay a suitcase, and inside it, the decomposing body of Emily Peguero, a 16-year-old girl, 5 months pregnant. Authorities carefully removed the remains and transported them to the medical examiner's office. The autopsy, conducted promptly, revealed the horrific circumstances of her death. Emily had suffered severe internal bleeding, likely resulting from a failed attempt to terminate her pregnancy. In addition, she had sustained a blunt force injury to the skull. Forensic experts concluded that death had been rapid, so sudden that the girl likely never fully understood what was happening to her. Tragically, the fears of the Peguero family and the wider community had been correct from the start. Emily's death had been orchestrated because Marlon and his mother were determined to eliminate what they saw as a threat to their reputation. The girl's pregnancy had sealed her fate. When the autopsy results were released, outrage swept through the community and beyond. By that time, Emily's story had gone viral worldwide. Photos of her in a red traditional Dominican dress circulated across social media, capturing the attention of countless users, including celebrities who shared her story with millions of followers. In response, her family launched a campaign under the hashtag #WeAreAllEmily, demanding justice and refusing to let the wealthy and influential Martinez family escape accountability. Communities rallied together, using every available means to pressure authorities and ensure the case would not be quietly buried. Meanwhile, the Pagaro family faced the harsh reality of their loss. Emily was laid to rest in a white casket, attended by a large crowd who came to pay their respects. Many brought pink balloons, flowers, and gifts for the family as gestures of support during the heartbreaking ordeal. Police continued their investigation and uncovered shocking new details. Marlon had never taken Emily to the gas station, as he had claimed to her sister and the media. That story was a complete fabrication. To conceal the truth, he had even sent a message from Emily's phone to her sister. Adele Giza had been right to doubt its authenticity. In reality, Marlon had taken Emily to his mother's empty apartment, where he forced her to drink an unknown substance that triggered internal bleeding and a failed attempt to terminate her pregnancy. This act directly led to the injuries revealed in the autopsy and ultimately caused her death. Emily became terrified. Investigators believe she may have tried to escape or lunged at Marlon in panic. In the chaos, he pushed her, badly misjudging his strength. Emily fell, struck her head, and died almost instantly. After realizing what he had done, Marlon placed her body into a bag, left his mother's apartment, and loaded it into the back seat of his car. This was the moment captured on the apartment building's surveillance cameras. Panicked and unable to think clearly, he drove aimlessly through town before stopping at a bridge, where he dumped the bag containing Emily's body onto the ground below. He then called his mother and told her everything. Marlon asked for her help, saying the body needed to be hidden better so it wouldn't be discovered so quickly. Later that same day, a security guard contacted Marlon's mother and showed her the surveillance footage. At that moment, she realized her son was at serious risk of going to prison and that immediate action was needed. In the early hours of August 24th, Marlon's mother met with her son and two accomplices to decide what to do next. Furious that her son had left the body in such an exposed place, she took control of the situation. Determined to fix what she saw as his mistake, she bribed an acquaintance to help move the remains. That man went to the bridge where the bag containing Emily's body had been left. He transferred her remains into a suitcase and dumped it along a roadside roughly an hour's drive from Senevi. The plan was simple and chilling. When a suitcase was eventually found, it would not be immediately connected to Emily Pagaro's disappearance. Eventually, the authorities expanded their investigation and arrested 4 more people connected to the case: Marlon's brother, a close friend of hers, and 2 employees. All 4 ultimately agreed to cooperate, providing testimony as witnesses. They spent a short time in detention before being released, as they were not directly involved in Emily's murder and had worked with the police to clarify events. In the end, only Marlon and her son Marlon faced trial for Emily's death. The proceedings were extraordinarily tense, stretching over 9 months after the girl's death. Each week seemed to bring new drama. Members of the Pagaro family boycotted certain hearings, several defense attorneys withdrew from the case, and local activists staged protests outside the courthouse. Ordinary residents of Senevi were so enraged that they openly threatened both Marlon and his mother. The anger reached such an extreme level that Marlon's mother had to be escorted to court wearing a bulletproof vest and protective helmet. Without these precautions, the furious public might have attacked her before the trial even began. The case had become not only a legal battle, but a flashpoint for a community's outrage over the brutal loss of a young, innocent life. In April, tragedy struck the Pagaro family all over again when Genaro, Emily's father, was arrested after attempting to bring a firearm into the courtroom. Tensions were already high, and this desperate act underscored the unbearable strain the family was under. As part of the trial, the prosecution decided to recreate the crime scene. They brought out the suitcase in which Emily's body had been found, along with her shoes and clothing. The evidence emitted such a strong odor that the demonstration had to be held outdoors in the courthouse parking lot. There, the prosecution team illustrated exactly how the body had been positioned in the suitcase and how it had been removed. For the Pagaro family, witnessing this reenactment was agonizing. Already devastated by grief, they were forced to relive the horror of Emily's final moments all over again. Meanwhile, the defense continued to insist that Marlon was innocent, claiming he had never intended to kill his girlfriend. However, Marlon's own story shifted repeatedly over the course of the investigation, undermining any notion of credibility. Initially, he confessed to finishing off Emily and dumping her body at the local dump. Later, he claimed that Emily had taken a pill herself, overwhelmed by her pregnancy, which had caused her death. In a third version, he insisted his mother had no involvement and hadn't even known Emily had died. These inconsistent accounts left Marlon's testimony in tatters, eroding any confidence in his version of events. The Pagaro family's lawyer argued that after Marlon's attempt to force a termination of Emily's pregnancy failed, he had concluded that it would be easier if she simply disappeared rather than taking her to a hospital and risking his own freedom. He had not anticipated that her body would be discovered, nor could he have foreseen the outrage that would engulf the community. Throughout the trial, the lawyer did not hesitate to openly criticize the Martinez family, showing no fear of their wealth, influence, or connections. His bold approach won the respect of the public and strengthened the Pagaro family's resolve. Of all the relatives, Adele Giza suffered the most. She had once cared for Marlon and his brothers, feeding them, putting them to bed, and looking after them while Marlon's mother focused on her career. Now, one of the boys she had nurtured had taken her youngest daughter's life, a betrayal that felt like a cruel, personal blow. Emily's loved ones were convinced that the entire tragedy stemmed from Marlon's desire to avoid a child with a girl from a poor family. They understood that the death resulted from a botched intervention, but that in no way justified treating Emily as a disposable object, discarded along the roadside. The trial dragged on, long and unbearably tense, as the family and community awaited justice for the young girl whose life had been so violently stolen. In November 2018, a panel of 3 judges delivered the verdict in the case. Marlon Martinez was found guilty of intentionally taking Emily Pagaro's life and was sentenced to 30 years in prison. His mother, Marla Martinez, was convicted of abduction and concealment of body, but received a sentence of just 5 years. When a verdict was announced, the courtroom erupted in outrage. Many could not believe that Marlon's mother, would serve only 5 years after playing a role in such a horrific crime. Protesters outside demanded that she receive at least 20 years, but the court's decision remained unchanged. Marlon's defense attorney immediately announced plans to appeal, arguing that his client had only intended to pressure Emily to eliminate their shared problem, not to end her life, and that the tragic outcome was unplanned. Alongside the prison sentences, the Martinez family was ordered to pay monetary compensation to the Pagaro family. But no amount of money could bring Emily back. Her parents wanted justice above all, and even with the convictions, they felt that justice had not truly been served. Their hearts would be dealt yet another blow in the weeks and months to come. On May 15, 2019, an appeals court dramatically reduced Marlon Martinez's sentence to just 2 years. The court ruled that there was insufficient evidence to prove she had committed a crime. She had known about her son's actions, but had not directly participated, nor had she reported him to the authorities. By September 2020, a judge ordered her immediate release. Many speculated that her influential connections had played a role in securing her early freedom. When she left the correctional facility, a crowd gathered outside, shouting insults and expressing outrage. But Marla Martinez quietly disappeared, reportedly living somewhere in the United States. Her son, Marlon, remains behind bars, though reports indicate he receives special privileges. Rumors even circulated that another 16-year-old girl had become pregnant by him, and that guards occasionally allowed him temporary absences from the prison. For Emily's father, Genaro, none of this felt like justice. He recalls the daily ritual of saying goodbye to his daughter each morning, entering her room to kiss her forehead before leaving for work. Those tender, ordinary moments are now shattered memories, leaving his heart perpetually broken. In memory of Emily, her brother created a 4-minute song recounting everything that had happened to her. The music video ends with him watching Marlon on television, pretending to cry at a press conference, before finally rising and smashing the screen in frustration and grief. Emily's bedroom has remained untouched since the day she died. Red paper hearts, symbols of love, are still pinned to the headboard. Neon pink curtains frame the window, and her bedside table holds a small stack of handmade bracelets, a statue of Jesus, and a framed photo of the Pope. Her clothes are neatly folded in the closet beside a collection of stuffed animals. The only addition to the room is a collage of photos and messages made by her classmates in memory of Emily. The tragedy of Emily's death also highlights a broader crisis in Latin America, where femicide rates are among the highest in the world. In the Dominican Republic alone, roughly 200 crimes against women are reported each year, though the real number is believed to be significantly higher. During the search for Emily, authorities discovered the bodies of two other 18-year-old girls, one killed by her stepfather, the other by her boyfriend. While Emily Peguero's murder was only one case among many, the extreme brutality of her death and the involvement of a government official shook the entire nation and brought global attention to the epidemic of violence against women in the country. Thanks for listening to Bleak True Crime. If you're fascinated by real-life mysteries and chilling cases from around the world, explore our channel for more in-depth true crime stories. Hit subscribe so you don't miss our next gripping investigation.